call them primitive. I think you understand them. But if you go back 50 years ago, you can't even understand the slang your parents used. You go back 100 years ago, even if we're not even talking about different languages, we're talking about the same language, English. And if you go back 100 years ago or 200 years ago, you don't even understand Old English. So obviously, shit gets misinterpreted all the time.
Yeah.
And, I find that there's no evidence that they were not as smart, or if not smarter. I think they were way smarter, because if I was in their world, I wouldn't last 15 minutes. I mean, I would, but
we're smart in that we grew up with the technology that's around us, so we know how to use it. And we have developed technology that they didn't have, for sure. So like, we're smart in a certain sense, but like, to deny that they didn't have smarts that we probably don't have today is dumb, because they probably had a lot of smarts that we've pretty much lost as a culture today, or a large society. We don't have a lot of their skills and their smarts they had.
Yeah. We've forgotten about our origin, our nature, our calling. Forsaken our planet. Fucking killing our animals and shit.
Yeah, like, if your whole life is like, you're having to work for everything, like you're raising the animals you're eating, you're raising the food, growing the food, building your house, doing all these things with your hands. It's like, you don't rip apart your resources, like your planet.
Exactly.
But you don't.
Not,
you know what I mean?
You don't industrially kill them and just to throw away like 15, 20, 30% of the meat, just waste.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking overconsumption, fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a certain wisdom that comes from that.
I think those dudes were fucking super fucking smart, dude. Super smart, dude. Smarter than me, man.
Especially if you see the shit. Oh, I was talking about this the other day. Like, especially the Egyptian culture. You see the shit, and Mayans and all of them. See the shit they built without the tools that we have today. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's so much time, precision, and like, that's retarded.
Yeah. It is, man. I have it all, man. I think I used to think that there is no like science and everyone wants to make the science versus religion debate. I think it's one and the same, man. I think
it's a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there can be both, definitely.
And very ambiguous.
Yeah.
You know, it's not specific.
Well, so it's yeah, man. I don't know. I know. I mean, I don't believe in one religion. I'm never going to, because that's the hand of man. That's one man's interpretation. But I think you can definitely take all religions, or you can definitely build your own personal subjective religion, because even if we both believe in Jesus or Christianity, it's going to be different for each person.
Yeah. I see that, like, the way that I think about religion is you have this one consciousness, this truth about its own being, that takes that these beings in different cultures or whatever come into contact with that consciousness, like realize themselves as that truth, and speak from different angles to speak to different angles, like to speak to different minds. You can't have, if you had one person, you can't take a Christian like person that speaks like all about Christian concepts and stuff and go over to like India back then and like expect it to just translate, because those people thought things have to be related to the culture that it's in, like to the minds that they're speaking to.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly.
So the way to interpret religion would be, can you put yourself in the mindset of that individual that's being spoken to without any. Can you interpret the symbols correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Can you interpret what's being intended without your twisting of it?
Mm-hmm. And
it's like Buddhism might speak to one person because one person's mindset and their nature might like be able to grasp it and relate to it. Or like, as in another mind that's more kind of like, I think Christianity really speaks to like SFJs. It's something that they can like really wrap their heads around and like grasp, compared to like where Buddhism, where it's all like discipline and like where it's kind of like STJ, STP ish. That like makes sense to me, where it's like this kind of like approach. It's just different. It's just different approaches to the same thing.
Then what is the NTP religion?
I think that's the Tao Te Ching.
The Tao's kind of NFJ or NTP maybe, but I don't think any one religion is actually any one type's religion or whatever. I just think it kind of has characteristics that cater to that certain kind of type of interpretation. For me, I've read religious texts from every culture, like literally read them from front to back, and I can tell you, like for me, it's like I see the correlation in the same things in each one. Like, I see that they're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Just from completely different angles, and it might be subtly different, like what they're talking about. Like you just have to be able to interpret different languages.
Yeah, I hate
different language of ideas.
I hate the nitpicking of each of them. Like, I get it. The Quran says terrible shit. I get it.
Terrible.
But holy shit, that's not it was in the beginning. In the beginning, that was not the that was not the meaning of it. In the beginning, you know,
Muhammad was just at like a highly popular and busy point of like trade, so there's people from all over the place, and he just kind of like picked up on different shit, made his own thing, and then went kind of crazy. But I like what Alan Watts says about Jesus, is that Jesus, there was nothing else around that area to point to or source other than Judeo-Christianity.
Just say Jews.
Yeah.
Have anyone?
So
sorry, Nick.
No, it's just an interesting point. He then goes on to Alan Watts' take on Jesus is pretty cool. I just recommend checking it out.
What always happens is a being comes in contact with truth and convinces people enough, not convinces in like a malicious sense, but like enough people listen to him or listen to that person, whoever it may be, and realizes that and changes their life. Like, so this whole system of thought, that person develops a system of understanding of symbols and language that he continuously and repeatedly communicates to people, and people start to learn his symbols and learn his communication and start to realize the truth in his meaning, because they're correctly interpreting the symbols that he's speaking through. So he kind of builds a religion, not on purpose, but just out of repeatedly talking about something over and over and trying to convey the truth of what he's saying from different angles and using different analogies and different symbols, that it kind of creates this understanding. But like, so that's what's important, is every religion is the same because it's just a collection of symbols pointing at something that is beyond symbols. Mm-hmm. But you can use the symbols to get there.
Yes.
So it's just, can you correctly interpret that set of symbols, or do you need a different set?
No. What else are you going to say? It's all repeating stories. So they said, like, what's going on with our religion now is, or not now, but so it goes through phases. We had, I forget the term for when you have many gods and then one god, but it's all recurring. So it was Horus, and then Horus was God, or was it? Yeah, it was Horus was like the father, and he had his only son, Osiris, right? And then there's Set, the evil freaking dude, and that actually became Satan later on. That actually Set became like translated into Satan for Judeo-Christianity. And then what happens to freaking Osiris? His father dies or whatever, and then they say he scattered all over the land. So that's the land, it's the people. And then what does Osiris have to do? Osiris has to go down to the underworld. He has to go under the underworld, so he has to die. And he dies. He sees his father again. So Jesus died, went up to heaven, rose again, and then it's like it's all the same. It's all the same narrative, just played over, tweaked.
Which is what's cool.
It's because there's truth, and what it is it's the journey of the psyche being explained through symbols. So it's like people that like.
Man. I'm sorry. Speak.
I was just saying, like, that's what I feel like it is. Just like the journey of a human being, a psyche, that someone that realized themselves as being, okay, like, this is what every human being goes through. I've realized that, like, I'm beyond this human condition. Like, this human condition happens inside of me. I am something bigger than this, and it's realizable, like, it's experienceable. So I'm going to communicate it I'm going to talk about it because it's the truth. So, like, so they continue to create symbols and language to try and explain it to people, and all these different systems get built of explaining the same thing.
It reminds me of.
That's big. I'm sorry. That's because all the religions try to answer the same questions, and the ignorance was common to all the people at that time. They were trying to answer the same question, so they gave the same wrong answers.
What if it's but also on the contrary, if it's truth that is what is sought and revealed, then it would also stand the same as what Yubi is saying, that there is one truth. Now, what I like to think about in this kind of a conversation is how all these different people can try things like DMT, and the experiences are almost identical. That's what I find interesting. It's like the consistency and reaction of people that have a deep spiritual experience on psychedelic drugs are so similar that it makes you think of the same type of thing. These people never talked to each other. They all had different ideas about it going into it, yet they had such a similar experience. And when you hear them talk about it, it's almost like verbatim the same. It's very interesting.
If you think about truth as simply, so that's where everyone gets it wrong. If you think of truth as like what you can only do objectively in the world, then no shit. Like, I guess we're superior, but I mean, they weren't any less stupid or any less truth-seeking because they were doing both. They were doing religion shit, but they also didn't have technology, so they were working their dicks off to make little, like, religion and I mean, whatever you want to call, like, finding meaning, philosophy, religion, that's never going to stop. We're always seeking that answer, but we're always doing science too. They never stopped doing science back then. They still had doctors. They still had freaking, like, learning that, okay, we have this bronze axe. Now let's get a steel axe, and now let's make a freaking saw. They were just as intelligent. They just, like, the philosophy changes, but I mean, they're not stupid. I don't think we're stupid. I don't think they're stupid. I don't think we're any closer to the truth.
I'm stupid.
I don't think because we understand science more, we're any better. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, it helps people live longer and stuff. That's kind of important.
It's built on the backs of all of their thinking, though. Like, all of our science today has been built over a long period of time.
Yeah, but giants may just accomplish the majority of things in the last centuries. It's not like we're building films from the first century.
But you have to understand that if you're looking at the dichotomy of everything, so if you go on pure science, what the fuck are we gonna do? Okay, so we have AI now that's fucking way smarter than us, can do everything fucking for us, and do everything way better than us, can teach each other.
No, not everything.
It's narrow AI right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that's what we're
He's
going
saying
to.
if you went just.
Oh.
Sorry,
Okay,
guys, gotta.
what's the point of living? So, okay, so we freaking get this AI, right? We get the self-driving car, right? I forget who explained this to me, but you get a self-driving car, right, which we have now. And unlike humans, where when we figure something out, we're like, oh, okay, I just learned this. I'm a smart